Hello, community. I hope this finds you well. For this week's video, I'd like to talk about, again, grief. I know I have another video on grief, and of course, this is a pretty long, complicated area for us, And what I wanted to focus on is the not so obvious emotions of grief. So, the most obvious emotions that we feel when we are grieving is the abandonment and the loneliness and the depression and the sadness. We recognize crying. We may even recognize, anger and outbursts. And we know that that's part of the grieving process. So we know where we are. It's always important to know where we are in our process. So, we can wake ourselves up out of disassociated states. But the not so obvious areas of grief, grief can leave us numb. Grief can leave us bored with life, like an apathy towards others or towards life. We may find that things that once brought us joy and excitement, well, they don't anymore. We're bored by it. And there's like a certain numbness sensation that runs through the soma. This is all grief. This is all of these emotions. And grief is complicated, right? It's also so layered. And it needs to be respected because it is a process that we are going through as a human being. And we all experience grief on so many levels, and it's different as we age. We may start to feel bored with life. We may lose our passions, and maybe no one died, or we don't really understand why we are experiencing these emotions. And as we get older, there's what we call anticipated grief, something that is not so obvious, but we are going through it. Like, we know that our bodies may start to fail us. We get to a certain age and we start thinking about the losses that are on the horizon that we think may happen to us, because we start to feel vulnerable to the impermanence of life. And so we may experience a certain apatheticness. We lose our zest for living, and we fall asleep to the joy of being alive. And this is all very normal and extremely common. And I just wanted to open up the dialogue around this, so again, we know where we are in the process, because I think one of the biggest tragedies that we have as humans is that when we have feelings and we feel like we shouldn't have these feelings, right? We just criticize ourselves, and the inner critic starts getting very loud. And then we compound, like I've said in other videos, we compound another layer of a heavy, deep emotion. And we go into sort of a isolated, desperate place because we feel ashamed. But grieving the loss of our youth is extremely common, and it's almost necessary. And the reason why I say it's necessary is so that, if I can grieve the yesteryears and really acknowledge that, yeah, I am getting older and life is not going to last forever. And if I can really allow myself to feel the sorrow and give myself permission to grieve the anticipated griefs that are completely normal, what we get is sort of like a sense of acknowledgement of what we're going through, an honoring of what we're going through as a human being. And the clarity that comes from that is we can get back to appreciating. And it's not going to be automatic, if just from having the realization. But the sooner we can get back to appreciating the joy of being alive, the more we can get back to our center. And we can appreciate life and at the same time be grieving the loss of yesteryears or our youth. It's just an acknowledgement of all the layers of humanness that we are experiencing, so that we can try to stay away from judging ourselves for having any of these emotions. Because the more we talk about things, see, the more we're ashamed, the less we're going to talk about it. And talking about what's happening for us with a dear, safe friend or a family member, it's just authentic conversation, and it's real, and it's life, and it can just ease some of the pain sometimes. And again, we can get back to experience the joys of being here while we're here. So I hope this is helpful. Have a beautiful week. Namaste.